Yo guys, Theo here on Common Sense. Today I'm gonna tell you about the king's mindset. Just my opinion of what that entails, of course, but I for one am sick and tired of this society where surface is all that matters and truth, not so much. As long as I appear a certain way, I look a certain way, I come off a certain way, I sound and display certain things. That's what really matters, not that any of that is actually true, that I actually embody anything of this, that I display on the surface, right? Everyone wants to be a Chad, an alpha, a king, Oh, look at me, see how much of a Chad I am, talking about men should do this and men should that, grind, hustle, and women, they're just terrible, they don't get men, they are like this, See how much of a man I am, because I say that I am, But truly, who are you? Off the camera, off the cool red pill podcast, are you really a man, right? Is being a man a king? Is that really about loudly proclaiming you are one? Or is it just a state of being? You are a king because you are a king. You live and act accordingly, right? This is something I woke up to almost 7 years ago now, when I used to be a skinny fat loser, hedonist, nihilist kind of guy. I'd been partying, drinking, escaping reality through vices, hooking up with girls when I could, otherwise porn, binge-watching TV series, playing video games hours on end, right? And I had been very angry. I was lost in life, and one of my other escapes was, as we do when we find chaos inside us, rather than to look at ourselves and see how we are the source of our own misery, we like to look at the outside world and project the chaos we feel within, right? And so I was very angry following the politics, right? And the news, and I would rage at the media, and politicians and feminists and in the end even women and other groups, right? But at a point before I started having those panic attacks that completely changed my life, I was forced to change them, go through this transformational journey, and came out on the other side a completely changed man. And what led to this total breakdown into panic attack syndrome, it was many things. One of the things just being how much I neglected and abused myself with these poor habits for years, and unresolved trauma and all these things, right? But I was also many things. I was lost in many ways. But one thing I started to wake up to, that all this anger I had at whoever it may be, feminists, politicians, journalists, but also, soy boys, weak men like that. I started realizing that who the fuck am I to have all... I sit and I talk so much, like I know what's up here, they're so terrible, all of these people. I know how you should be. Really, who the fuck was I? This little degenerate that I described, that maybe has an idea of how things should be. But when I look at everyone else, it's easy to criticize, But if I look at me, though, am I really living up to what I think a man should be? Who the fuck am I to have all these opinions and talking so lecturing about how things should be, right? So when I started to actually prioritize and take care of myself, it started with just the fitness stuff, eating a better diet and exercising. And I noticed I feel so much better from this, right? But from that point is when I decided that, that's why it's called uncommon sense. I felt like I'd always had a hunch of things. I know how I should be, what a good person actually is. And all these things, right? What I should do in life, what's really important. But then you get thrown all these messages at you and you doubt yourself, right? But at that point, because it was so clear that when I actually started just following what I knew was the right way to be, I became a much better person. I felt much better, but also I could see immediately that I had a much better impact on everyone around me. Not only I feel better, so I have more just energy to give, but I also invest in myself. I learn things. I have something to bring to the table now, right? So I decided that I'm going to be a good person, just what I think is a good person, right? Lead by example. That's what it's all about, and it's not easy. But the message I want to give you in this video is that all men, there's one thing to want to be a king, see it as an ideal. I want to be someone that leads the way forward, that sets a good example and leads the way forward, but on my level, But all men should at the very least be the kings of themselves, being in charge of, not being a slave to your bodily urges and pleasure or pain, right? You should first and foremost be a king of yourself, and then we're just meant for different levels of this, right? That at the very least of ourselves, but probably as a father of families, maybe as a boss at a company or your business, maybe at a YouTube channel and being a coach the way I am, you know. And so to me, I started realizing this, that there's always been a king inside me. When I wanted to be the king, by talking and louding and proclaiming I'm alpha, you know, and all these things, I wanted to be that, but I just wasn't, you know. But now when I started living like this, from tons of different directions, people told me that you're a natural leader, you know. And it occurred to me that, man, yeah, even when I was a completely different person, let's say a good example was like in school, whether that's like a high school or university later, right? But if there was an assignment, everyone would always sit and be like, oh, how are we supposed to do this assignment, you know? And I would be, without being like super assertive or like, let's do it my way, I would just think out loud that what if we did it like this, you know? And everyone was always like, yeah, that's a good idea, you know? And what I would, so that often I realized my role often became in groups, the one that leads, you know, the one, not the one that sits and writes everything down, but that comes up with the things they were supposed to do, and maybe you do this, and maybe you do this, you know. And I found that this is the way I am a king and leader, right? But it started with taking charge of myself, leading myself, right? But there are many, it's, you know, being a king, it's not easy, it's a tough balance, you know, because this is the thing with true leaders, true kings. What I wanted to say earlier is that, you know, I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a king, but you cannot be a king because you try to be, or because you know, you show, you display, you talk about the things. See, all the things that I do, you know, when you are a king, it's not a choice you've made, you know, even if it's something you wanted and strive for. When you are a king, there's nothing that, because you did this, this and that, it's because you know, you see the role now that, okay, clearly people need me. People need me to do this thing that I do. People need me to be fucking awesome. You know, I am fucking awesome. That's why I am a king. And it's a tough balance for the king to not get arrogant, you know, and go into his ego with how much better I am and everything, and then everyone else, you know. But he, at the same time, has to give himself that. He has to have that confidence that, yes, I am fucking great at what I do. It's of utmost importance that I prioritize myself, you know. People need to support me, because a person like me getting the support I need, that's how in the end, it's going to elevate not just me, but everyone around me, right? And I'm thinking about this today. Well, I'm visiting another king here. That's why I'm in a little bit of an unusual environment here. And yeah, I have to be outside when he is in his kingdom doing his work, you know. But I actually started reading Marcus Aurelius's Meditations lately. You know, I haven't read much of the Stoics. I've just taken part in excerpts here and there, you know. But he's the one that's really resonated with me personally the most. And I started reading it, and it really inspired me a lot, you know. And so I started writing sort of my own version. It might be my next book. There might be other books that I write that I can just push out a little faster, because this is not something that I'm going to force, like writing a book. It's going to be like, just like Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, it's going to be messages to myself, and it's going to be finished whenever it's finished, you know. But before, because I want to I'm not going to share anything until it's done, except the introduction I'm going to share here at the end of the video. But what impresses me so much reading Marcus Aurelius, I'm moved just thinking about it now, is that he struggles so much with living up to what he thinks he should be. You know, a king, really. That's just my word that I'm using now, king, but really. But it's not just as an emperor over the Roman Empire, you know. It's also just as a human being, you know. But at the same time, he prioritizes himself so much. His time, even being an emperor, he always took time to retreat into himself for his meditations, right? Because he knew that ultimately, me prioritizing myself like that, making sure that I'm okay, number one is okay, well, I am a king, and ultimately that I am okay, that I'm thriving, you know, that I'm my best, that I've invested in myself, that's me elevating myself first is what's gonna help me elevate others also. And I find it admirable, that balance. So being humble, you know, it's ultimately about doing the best for the whole, for everyone, you know, but just realizing, having enough trust in himself to be like, I gotta trust, both invest in myself, but also trust that I am the fucking king and I know best, okay? And so what I see, because I work with any woman that resonates with my message and ways of doing things. It happens every once in a while, but as it might not come as a surprise, my clients, the majority of them are men, right? And what I see is that what men do, they struggle to prioritize themselves, you know. They prioritize their family and their job, and they think they do, right? Because you know that what will get sacrificed the first for the family or the job is themselves, you know. Now I sacrifice sleep, and so now I'm in a deficit. Now I'm weak to my urges. My batteries are never fully loaded, you know. So to escape all of this, I overeat. I drink too much beer, you know. I'm in a bad circle when I'm in piss poor shape and have to operate from some kind of lower state of being all the time because, the work, the family, and it is admirable to want to sacrifice yourself like that for something greater, your family or your work, the value you bring, the help and support and guidance you bring to others. That's great and admirable to want to do, but you got to realize that you're sacrificing all of that also when you're sacrificing yourself. It's by investing in yourself first and prioritizing, even as a father, even as a leader of a company or wherever your kingdom is, where you are king, right? It's by investing in yourself first with proper habits, prioritizing your sleep, getting a good diet, taking time to exercise, even some time for alone time, meditations, right, to wind down. By prioritizing yourself in that way, now in the end you're prioritizing everyone else also. That's not to say, because I know everyone's rationalizations they want to come up with, that sometimes you just have to sleep less, sometimes you just have to skip a workout to do something right now, but in the grand scheme of things, taking time for your personal process, investing in yourself, building yourself up, that's ultimately what will give you the most, will give everyone the most of you. You give yourself the most, that's how you give everyone the most, right? So I'll just read you the introduction to my upcoming own meditations that I call Uncommon Senses here. Thank you, Marcus, for showing me a new way to a better relationship to myself, to ultimately be a better person for everyone and to be of best use for the good of the whole. For reminding me that man's ability to withdraw into himself is not his prison, but his fortress of solitude and peace and his internal retreat before rising higher in the external world. For showing me that what man does on the micro level matters as much as what he does on the macro level. For showing me that even a great king struggles with self-esteem and failing to live up to what he thinks a good person should be, not only as a king, but as a fellow human being and divine aspect of the whole. For reminding me that prioritizing himself does not make him selfish, and that it in fact is of utmost importance to prioritize the self, to ultimately be of best service to other selves. For revealing to me that a great king will struggle with feelings of grandiosity and caring too much alike. For confirming to me that it is true that a king's lot is to do good and be damned, and that sacrifice is man's greatest virtue. For showing me that what he did, even so often full of doubts, ultimately made a huge difference, proved by the fact that I am here reading and learning from his meditations today. For reminding me that doing good for the doing of good alone, regardless of micro or macro level or known outcome, is always good. For revealing to me that I should strive to meet my fellow man humbly and gracefully to the best of my abilities, but also take myself more seriously than anyone and give myself the final judgment and interpretation of the truth. For awakening me to the fact that a king is king because he knows he is a king. He may not initially have chosen the path himself, he may have questioned his worthiness, and he may not be the one and only, but when he finds that the king's path is his path, he knows, and he no longer needs anything outside of himself to choose or validate him. Because when the king awakens, it becomes a state of being for him. With every breath and action he takes, he is a king. And the only other thing he can become now is retired or expired. Thanks, King. I say that in the sincerest internet meme-ish way used to show respect and love in my time. My uncommon sense tells me that your overarching message and legacy was a quantum leap in time, meant for me personally, but regardless, I shall pick the torch up and carry it on where you left off. On my level, in my time, with whatever that entails for me personally, with my limited time in this realm as part of the whole, as the particular aspect Theodor, a Swede, a big brother, a champion of love, truth, and what is right, a worker for the good of the whole. I owe you for this particular awakening. Thank you. So that's it, guys. I am always interested to hear your comments, but please like and comment either way. Just anything, it helps support the channel, helps more people find their way here, so it's very much appreciated. I do holistic bodybuilding coaching, getting jacked and stacked, mentally, physically, spiritually, working on ourselves, body, mind and soul, becoming a king that looks like a king, because he is a king, okay? He embodies what a king should be. So if you're interested, you can send me a DM on Instagram or email me, it's in the description below. I'll get back to you, tell you about my different programs and offers. You can pick up my training book, everything training, mindset and philosophy you need in order to become a self-reliant, jacked and stacked individual. And please subscribe for more content about fitness, fasting, losing weight, building muscle, self-improvement, stoicism, mental health, philosophy, spirituality, mindset. It is a mindset, guys. The king's mindset. That was a crown I put on my head, in case you didn't understand. Peace.